Imagine this. You're Hercule Poirot, the world's greatest detective, sipping tea in your cozy London flat when a whisper from a forgotten dream pulls you into a web of murder where the killer's motives echo from the depths of the mind itself. Chapter Salve 1. The Whisper in the Night Picture. This. Folks, it's a foggy evening in 1930s London, the kind where the street lamps cast long, eerie shadows on the cobblestones and the air hums with the distant rumble of the Thames. Our hero Hercule Poirot, that meticulous Belgian detective with his perfectly waxed mustache and an ego as sharp as his little gray cells, is settling into his armchair after a day of tying up loose ends on a minor jewel theft case. He's got his tisane in hand, a herbal tea that he swears by for calming the nerves, and he's flipping through the evening paper, chuckling at the headlines about some society scandal. But tonight something feels off. Poirot isn't one for superstitions. Mind you, he's all about logic, order, and method. Yet, as the clock strikes midnight, he drifts off to sleep. And that's when the echoes begin. In his dream, Poirot finds himself not in his flat, but in a grand, dimly lit ballroom. Crystal chandeliers hang overhead like frozen fireworks, and the room is filled with masked figures swirling in a waltz. The music is faint, almost ghostly, like it's coming from another room, another time. He spots a woman in a crimson gown, her face hidden behind a feathered mask, gliding toward him. She leans in close, her breath cool against his ear, and whispers, "The subconscious never lies, Monsieur Poirot. It echoes the truth we dare not face." Before he can respond, she vanishes into the crowd, leaving behind a single glove embroidered with a strange symbol, a swirling spiral that looks like a hypnotic eye. Poirot reaches for it, but the dream shifts. Now he's in a dark alley, rain pouring down, and there's a body at his feet. A man, sprawled lifeless, with a note clutched in his hand, echoes from within. Poirot bolts awake, his heart pounding, the tisane cup shattered on the floor. Was it just a dream? He dismisses it at first. After all, even the great Poirot has vivid nights after too much rich food, but as he cleans up the mess, he notices something chilling on his nightstand. Right where he'd left his watch lies a real glove, identical to the one in his dream, down to the spiral embroidery. Now, if you're like me, you'd be freaking out at this point. But Poirot? He straightens his mustache, adjusts his tie, and decides this is no coincidence. The subconscious, he muses. That hidden part of the mind Freud talks about, where desires and fears lurk like shadows. Poirot's read a bit about it. He's modern that way, keeping up with the psychologists, even if he prefers his own methods. He rings for his valet, George, who stumbles in half asleep. "George, my good man," Poirot says, holding up the glove. "Tell me, did you place this here?" George shakes his head, bewildered. No visitors, no deliveries. The flat was locked tight. So how did it get there? Poirot paces the room, his mind racing. This glove isn't just any accessory. It's fine silk, custom-made, with that peculiar symbol. He recalls seeing something similar in a book on hypnosis he'd skimmed once, a sigil used in experimental therapies to unlock repressed memories. The next morning, Poirot heads to his club for breakfast, but his appetite is gone. Instead, he pores over the newspapers again, searching for any hint that might connect to his dream. And there it is, buried on page 5. Prominent psychiatrist found dead in alley-apparent suicide. The victim? Dr. Elias Thorne, a pioneer in subconscious therapy, known for his controversial sessions where patients relive traumas through guided dreams. The article says he jumped from his office window, but Poirot's little gray cells perk up. Suicide? With a note saying "echoes from within"? It's too on the nose, even for a desperate man. And the alley, it matches the one in his dream. Poirot decides he must investigate. He hails a cab to Thorne's office in Harley Street, the hub of London's medical elite. The place is cordoned off by police, but Poirot flashes his credentials. He's got friends in Scotland Yard, after a land slips inside. The office is a mix of science and mysticism, shelves lined with books on Freud, Jung, and hypnosis. A couch for patients, and strange devices like a phonograph modified to play subliminal recordings. Inspector Japp is there, grumbling about another open and shut case. Jumped he did, Poirot, Left a note and everything. Overwork, probably. These head shrinkers crack under their own pressure. But Poirot isn't buying it. He examines the body, still being processed downstairs. Thorne's hands are clean, no signs of struggle, but there's a faint mark on his wrist, like a restraint. And in his pocket, a matching glove to the one Poirot found. Mon Dieu, Poirot mutters. This isn't suicide. It's murder, staged to look like the doctor's own demons drove him to it. But who would kill a psychiatrist? And why plant a glove in Poirot's dream weight? No, in his room. Gosh, was the dream a premonition? Or something more sinister, like suggestion planted in his subconscious? Poirot interviews Thorne's secretary, Miss Evelyn Hart, a sharp-eyed woman in her 30s with a no-nonsense bob haircut. She's shaken, but composed. Dr. Thorne was brilliant, she says, dabbing her eyes. He helped so many, unlocking memories they'd buried deep. But lately he was troubled. Patients complaining of nightmares that felt too real, echoing into their waking lives. Poirot presses her. Any enemies? Well, there was that rival Dr. Victor Lang, who accused him of charlatanism, and a patient, Lady Amelia Croft, who stormed out last week, saying his therapy revealed too much. Poirot notes it all down. He also learns Thorne was experimenting with echotherapy, using sound waves and hypnosis to amplify subconscious thoughts, making them manifest as hallucinations or even actions. Could someone have turned it against him? Back at his flat, Poirot recreates the scene. He lies on his couch mimicking a therapy session and plays a record he borrowed from Thorne's office, soft whispers meant to induce trance. As he drifts, fragments return. The woman in crimson, now clearer. She's got a scar on her cheek, hidden by the mask. And the symbol on the glove? It's from an ancient Egyptian text on dream interpretation. Poirot snaps awake with a theory. The killer is using subconscious manipulation to commit crimes, planting suggestions that drive victims to their deaths. But why involve him? Perhaps to taunt the great detective, or because Poirot's own mind holds a key as the day wears on. Poirot visits Lady Croft at her Mayfair mansion. She's a glamorous widow, dripping in pearls, but her eyes dart nervously. Thorne dug too deep, she confesses. In my sessions, I recalled an accident from my youth, but it felt planted like someone else's memory. She mentions hearing echoes, whispers in her sleep. Poirot shows her the glove. She gasps. That's mine. I lost it weeks ago. Now it's personal. Someone stole it, placed one at the crime scene, and slipped the other into Poirot's flat to draw him in. But how did they know his dream? Poirot returns home, piecing it together. The killer must be close. Someone who knows psychology, has access to patients, and perhaps a grudge. He suspects Miss Hart or Dr. Lang, but needs more. That night, as he dozes, another dream. The ballroom again, but now the woman unmasks. It's Miss Hart, smiling wickedly. The echoes are just beginning. Poirot? He wakes to a knock at the door. It's Jap. Urgent. Another body, Poirot. Dr. Lang, dead in his home. Same note. Echoes from within. Phew, what a start to our tale, right? Poirot's in deep now, with the subconscious pulling strings he can't yet see. But hold on, because in the next chapter, we'll dive into the twisted world of Thorne's patients and uncover secrets that blur the line between mind and murder. Stay tuned. Chapter 2. The patient's shadows. The fog has thickened in London, wrapping the city in a gray shroud that mirrors the haze in Hercule Poirot's mind. It's the morning after Inspector Japp's urgent visit. I do poor. And Poirot is already at Dr. Victor Lang's townhouse in Bloomsbury, where the second body lies. The scene is grim. Lang, a wiry man with a reputation for skepticism about subconscious therapies, is slumped in his study, a single bullet through his temple. Revolver rests in his hand, and another note echoes from within, is pinned to his desk. The police are calling it another suicide, but Poirot's little gray cells are buzzing. He examines the room. Books on neurology scattered about, a smashed gramophone in the corner, and, curiously, a faint scent of lavender lingering in the air. No glove this time, but Poirot notices something else, a small, spiral-shaped burn. Mark on Lang's wrist, identical to the one on Dr. Thorne. This is no coincidence. It's a signature. Poirot questions the housekeeper, Mrs. Clara Dunn, a stout woman with trembling hands. She swears Lang was alone last night, working late on a paper debunking quack therapies. But she mentions a visitor 2 days ago, a woman in a crimson coat who left quickly, her face obscured by a wide-brimmed hat. Poirot's mind flashes to the crimson-gowned figure from his dream, but he keeps that to himself. Instead, he asks about Lang's work. He was obsessed, Mrs. Dunn says. Always ranting about Thorne's methods, said they toyed with patients' minds, planting false memories. Did Lang know Thorne personally? Oh yes, she nods. They trained together years ago, but fell out over a Pashenta young man who went mad after their experiments. Poirot files this away. A shared past could mean shared enemies. Back at his flat, Poirot digs into Thorne's patient records, which he'd discreetly borrowed from Harley Street. The files reveal a roster of London's elite, aristocrats, politicians, even a few artists, all seeking to unlock their subconscious for answers to personal woes. One name stands out. Mr. Julian Harrow, a reclusive painter whose sessions with Thorne stopped abruptly last month. The notes describe Harrow as resistant to echotherapy. With vivid nightmares of a crimson figure, Poirot decides to visit Harrow's studio in Soho, a cramped loft filled with unsettling canvases, swirling spirals, faceless dancers, and a recurring motif of a woman in red. Harrow, a gaunt man with paint-stained fingers, is cagey. Thorne's therapy was a mistake, he mutters. It woke something in me dreams that weren't mine. I saw her, always her, telling me to paint things I didn't want to. He points to a canvas in the corner, half covered. A woman in a crimson gown, her face a blur, holding a glove with a spiral. Poirot's pulse quickens. Did you ever meet Dr. Lang? He asks. Harrow hesitates. Once he came here, warned me to stop seeing Thorne, said it was dangerous. Poirot leaves the studio with more questions than answers. Harrow's paintings echo his own dream too closely. How is that possible? He stops at a cafe to think, sketching the spiral symbol on a napkin. It's hypnotic, almost pulling his gaze inward. He recalls Thorne's echotherapy, sound waves, and suggestion to amplify subconscious thoughts. Could someone be weaponizing it, planting images in multiple minds? Poirot decides to test this. He visits a friend, Dr. Margaret Wells, a neurologist with no connection to Thorne or Lang. Over tea, he asks her to examine the record he took from Thorne's office, a low hum with whispered phrases. She listens, her face paling. This is designed to induce a trance, she says. Could make someone highly suggestible, even to act against their will. Poirot nods grimly. The killer might be using this to orchestrate murders disguised as suicides. That evening, Poirot attends a lecture at the Royal Psychological Society, hoping to spot a lead among Thorne's and Lang's peers. The room is abuzz with scholars. But one figure catches his eye, Miss Evelyn Hart, Thorne's secretary, now mingling with surprising poise. She's speaking to a tall man in a tailored suit, who slips her a note before vanishing into the crowd. Poirot follows her outside, where she hails a cab. He tails her to a nondescript office in Whitechapel, its sign reading Hypnotic Studies. Inside, he overhears her on a telephone, her voice low. The painter's talking. Out. We need to move. Faster. Poirot retreats before she sees him, but his mind is racing. Is Miss Hart more than a secretary? And who was the man? At home, Poirot pores over the patient files again, focusing on the young man Thorne and Lang quarreled over years ago. A name emerges. Edward Vance, institutionalized after a breakdown during their early experiments. Poirot tracks down Vance's asylum records, finding he was released 6 months ago, deemed cured. The address listed is a boarding house in East London. Poirot visits, finding the place run down, reeking of damp. The landlady says Vance left weeks ago, but received frequent packages, small boxes with no return address. One lies unopened. A corner. Poirot, with a discreet bribe, takes it. Inside is a phonograph record labeled Echo Session 9. He plays it on his portable gramophone. Hearing the same hypnotic hum, laced with whispers, follow the spiral, act on the echo. His vision blurs, the room tilting, till he yanks the needle off. Now certain the murders are linked to this technology. Poirot suspects Vance might be the Kiora the killer. He cross-references Vance's last known contacts and finds a connection. To Lady Amelia Croft, who'd mentioned an accident in her youth. Could Vance be her brother, or someone tied to that event? Poirot decides to confront her again, but as he steps outside, a street urchin hands him a note. It's written in a hurried scrawl, "Stop digging, Poirot, or the echoes will claim you too." The spiral symbol is drawn at the bottom. The stakes are higher now, and Poirot's not just chasing a killer, he's chasing a mind that's playing chess with his own. What's next? We'll step into the shadows of Lady Croft's past, where a long-buried secret might just unravel this deadly game. Chapter 3. The Ghosts of Mayfair. The London fog has lifted. But a different kind of haze settles over Hercule Poirot as he steps into the opulent drawing room of Lady Amelia Croft's Mayfair mansion. The air smells of roses and wax polish, and the walls are lined with gilt-framed portraits that seem to watch his every move. Lady Croft, elegant in a silk dress the color of midnight, greets him with a tight smile. Her pearls gleam, but her fingers twist nervously around a lace handkerchief. Poirot's here to probe deeper into her connection to Dr. Thorne's therapy and the mysterious Edward Vance, whose name keeps surfacing like a ghost. He senses she's hiding something tied to the accident she mentioned, and perhaps to the crimson figure haunting his dreams. Poirot settles into a plush armchair. Declining her offer of tea with a polite wave, "Madame," he begins, his voice smooth but firm. "Your sessions with Dr. Thorne revealed a memory and accident, you said. I must know more." Lady Croft's eyes flicker, but she maintains composure. "It was nothing, Monsieur Poirot. A childhood mishap long forgotten." He presses gently, mentioning Vance's name. Her face pales, and for a moment she looks like she might faint. "Edward?" she whispers. "How do you know of him?" Poirot explains the asylum records, watching her closely. She admits Vance was her cousin, a troubled boy who lived with her family after his parents died. He was unwell, she says, obsessed with dreams, always drawing spirals. After the accident, he changed. Thorne and Lang tried to help him, but it only made things worse. The accident, she reluctantly reveals, happened 20 years ago at her family's country estate. Edward, then 16, was playing near a frozen lake with Amelia and her younger brother Thomas. The ice broke, and Thomas drowned. Edward blamed himself, spiraling into guilt that fueled his mental collapse. Thorne's therapy brought it back, she says, voice trembling. But it felt wrong, like the memory wasn't mine alone. I heard whispers in my sleep, urging me to confess things I never did. Poirot's mind sharpens. Could someone have planted guilt in her subconscious, just as they're planting clues in his? He shows her the note with the spiral symbol from the urchin. She gasps, recognizing it. Edward drew that everywhere, she says. It was his obsession. Poirot leaves the mansion with a new lead. Edward Vance, now free from the asylum, might be using Thorne's echo therapy to exact revenge on those who failed him, Thorne, Lang, and perhaps Amelia. But how is he orchestrating it? Poirot heads to the British Library, diving into archives on hypnosis and sound technology. He finds a rare article by Thorne and Lang from their early days describing a failed experiment. They used synchronized sound waves to imprint memories in patients, hoping to heal trauma. Instead, it caused hallucinations, and in Vance's case, a breakdown. The article mentions a device or resonator that amplified subconscious signals. Poirot wonders if Vance stole it, refining it into a weapon. Next, Poirot tracks down the boarding house's package sender through a postmark on the box he took. It leads to a small shop in Camden, a cluttered place selling phonographs and odd mechanical parts. The owner, a nervous man named Mr. Finch, admits to sending records for a client who paid in cassia, tall man with a scar on his cheek, always wearing gloves. Poirot's dream flashes back. The crimson figure had a scar. Is this Vance? Or someone else? Finch hands over a ledger showing orders for custom records with special frequencies. Poirot buys one, intending to analyze it later. That evening, Poirot visits Inspector Japp at Scotland Yard, sharing his theory about Vance and the resonator. Japp, skeptical, but agrees to check recent sightings of Vance. Meanwhile, Poirot examines the new record at his flat. As it plays, the familiar hum fills the room, and his vision blurs again. This time he sees the ballroom, but it's different, empty. Except for a mirror reflecting his own face, twisted into a sinister smile. A voice whispers, "You're part of it, Poirot." He stops the record, shaken. Is he being targeted? His mind manipulated like the victims? He locks the record away, resolving to stay sharp the next morning. Japp calls with news. Vance was spotted near Whitechapel, near the Hypnotic Studies office. Poirot saw Miss Hart visit. Poirot heads there, posing as a client, receptionist. A young woman with sharp eyes says the office is closed, but Poirot glimpses a back room with wires and a strange machine humming softly, a resonator, perhaps. Before he can investigate, Miss Hart appears, startled to see him. "Monsieur Poirot, what a surprise," she says, her voice too smooth. She claims the office belongs to a colleague studying sound therapy. Poirot plays along, but notices a photograph on her desk, her with a young man, scar on his cheek, holding a spiral sketch as he leaves. Poirot feels eyes on him. He ducks into an alley, spotting a figure in a crimson coat watching from a distance. Before he can pursue a street, vendor's cart blocks his path, and the figure vanishes. Back at his flat, Poirot finds his door ajar. Inside, his papers are untouched, but a single phonograph needle lies on his desk, etched with a tiny spiral. The message is clear. The killer knows he's closing in. The trail is heating up, and Poirot's little gray cells are working overtime. Next, we'll follow him into the heart of Whitechapel, where the resonator's hum reveals a conspiracy deeper than he ever imagined. Chapter 4. The hum of Whitechapel. The narrow streets of Whitechapel pulse with life vendors hawking wares. Children darting through alleys. And the clatter of horse-drawn carts mixing with the distant hum of London's evening bustle. Hercule Poirot, his coat collar turned up against the damp chill, navigates these gritty lanes with purpose. The Hypnotic Studies office, where he spotted Miss Hart and that mysterious machine, is his target. The tiny spiral-etched phonograph needle he found in his flat weighs heavily in his pocket, a taunting reminder that the killer is watching. Poirot's little gray cells are on high alert, piecing together the puzzle. Edward Vance, the resonator, device, and a crimson figure who seems to haunt both dreams and reality. Tonight he means to uncover what seek out the conspirators weaving this deadly web. Poirot arrives at the office, a nondescript building squeezed between a butcher shop and a tavern. The sign reading Hypnotic Studies is gone, replaced by a blank board, as if the operation packed up overnight. The door is locked, but Poirot, ever resourceful, picks the lock with a hairpin, a trick he learned from a less-than-savory case years ago. Inside, the office is stripped bare. No papers, no furniture, only a faint lavender scent lingering, like at Lang's crime scene. In the back room, he finds the machine he glimpsed before, a boxy contraption with dials and wires humming faintly. When he flips a hidden switch, it's the resonator, he's sure, designed to amplify subconscious signals through sound. He notes its intricate design: copper coils, a glass tube glowing faintly, and a slot for phonograph records. Before he can examine further, footsteps echo outside. Poirot slips out just as a burly man in a dark coat enters, shouting, "You there?" Poirot sprints into an alley, losing the pursuer in the maze of Whitechapel. His heart races not from the chase, but from the realization that the killer's operation is mobile, likely moving the resonator to avoid him. Back at his flat, he examines the needle again, its spiral etching matching the symbol in his dreams and on the victim's notes. Contacts Dr. Margaret Wells, who confirms the resonator could manipulate minds, inducing actions or memories. "It's like planting a seed in the subconscious," she explains. "The right frequency could make someone act without knowing why." Poirot visits the Camden shop again, pressing Mr. Finch for more details. Finch, sweaty and evasive, admits the scar-faced man likely Vance ordered dozens of custom records, paying extra for secrecy. He said they were for therapy, Finch mutters, but he had a wild look, like he was chasing ghosts. Poirot buys another record, labeled Echo Session 12, and takes it home. Playing it briefly, he hears whispers urging obedience to the spiral. His vision swims, the room tilting, until he stops the record, shaken. Someone's targeting minds, not just bodies. Next, Poirot tracks down a former colleague of Thorne and Lang, Dr. Beatrice Moore, at a small clinic in Bethnal. Green, she's a wiry woman with sharp eyes and a cigarette habit, wary of questions. Thorne and Lang ruined Vance, she says bitterly. Their experiments broke his mind, made him see things, red figures, spirals. He swore revenge. She recalls Vance visiting her recently, ranting about echoes controlling us all. He left her a record, which she burned, fearing its power. Poirot asks about the resonator. It was their prototype, she says. I thought it was destroyed. If Vance has it, he's dangerous. Poirot checks with Japp, who reports sightings of Vance near a disused warehouse in Whitechapel. Poirot heads there, finding the warehouse locked, but hearing a faint hum inside. Through a grimy window, he sees a figure in a crimson coat scar. On cheek adjusting, a resonator, records stacked nearby. The figure spots him and bolts, leaving a note the echoes sue Poirot. Poirot enters, finding diagrams of brainwave patterns and a list of names, including his own, marked with spirals. Back home, Poirot cross-references the list. It includes Lady Croft, Harrow, and others linked to Thorne's clinic. He suspects Vance is using the resonator to plant suggestions, driving victims to their deaths while taunting him with clues. But why him? Poirot lies on his couch playing, the record again fighting its pull. The crimson figure appears in his mind, whispering, "You'll join us soon." He stops the record, heart pounding. The net is tightening. But Vance is a ghost, slipping through Whitechapel's shadows. Poirot's next move takes him to the asylum where Vance was held, seeking the truth behind his fractured mind and the echoes that bind them all. Chapter 5. The asylum's whispers, the train rattles through the English countryside, carrying Hercule Poirot away from the smoky haze of London toward the rolling hills of Surrey, where St. Agnes Asylum stands like a forgotten sentinel. It's a grand old building, all Victorian brick and iron gates, surrounded by manicured lawns that do little to mask the despair within. Poirot adjusts his hat as he steps off at the local station, the crisp autumn air a stark contrast to Whitechapel's grime. His mind is a whirlwind of clues, the resonator humming in that warehouse, Edward Vance's scar-faced silhouette vanishing into the night, and those insidious phonograph records that twist thoughts like vines choking a garden. The asylum, where Vance spent years after his breakdown, holds the key to understanding how a broken mind could orchestrate such calculated chaos. Poirot's little gray cells demand answers. Who treated Vance? What experiments lingered? And why? The echoes now reach out to ensnare him too. A horse-drawn cab takes Poirot up the winding drive to the asylum's entrance. The gates creak open, and he's greeted by Dr. Reginald Hawthorne. The superintendent, tall, bespectacled man, with a clipped mustache and a handshake that's firm but cold. Hawthorne leads him to a wood-paneled office overlooking the grounds, where patients in white gowns shuffle like ghosts under the watchful eyes of nurses. "Monsieur Poirot," Hawthorne says, settling behind a massive desk cluttered with files. "I was surprised by your telegram, Edward Vance. A tragic case, but he's long gone, released 6 months ago, as you know." Poirot nods, his eyes scanning the room, shelves of medical tomes. A faded photograph of young doctors including Thorne and Langand, a peculiar device in the corner, dusty but familiar, a prototype resonator perhaps. He inquires about Vance's history, and Hawthorne pulls out a thick file, yellowed with age. As Hawthorne recounts, Vance arrived 20 years ago, a teenager shattered by the lake accident at the Croft estate. Guilt consumed him, Hawthorne explains. He raved about echoes in his head, drawing spirals on walls, claiming a crimson spirit whispered commands. Thorne and Lang, then rising stars, volunteered for experimental treatments, hypnosis, sound therapy to unlock his subconscious. But it backfired. Vance grew worse. Hawthorne sighs. Hallucinations intensified. He attacked a nurse, convinced she was the red figure. We isolated him, but Thorne insisted on continuing, saying the echoes were repressed memories surfacing. Poirot leans forward, mustache twitching, and the resonator. Did they use it here? Hawthorne hesitates, then admits yes, a device emitting low frequencies to resonate with brainwaves. It's amplifying hidden thoughts. But after Vance's violent episodes, it was shelved. Lang blamed Thorne for pushing too far, Hawthorne adds. They argued fiercely. Lang left the project, calling it madness. Poirot requests to see Vance's old room, and Hawthorne obliges, leading him down echoing corridors lined with locked doors. Whimpers and murmurs seep through, a symphony of troubled minds. Da-da-da! The room is sparse, a narrow bed, a small window barred. Against escape, walls scrubbed clean, but faint scratches remain, spirals etched into the plaster. Poirot runs his finger over one, feeling the desperation in each groove. He drew these constantly, Hawthorne notes, said they were maps to the subconscious. Under the bed, Poirot finds a loose floorboard. Lifting it reveals a hidden cassia crumpled notebook overlooked in the cleaning. Pages filled with Vance's scrawls, sketches of the Crimson Woman, notes on echo frequencies, and a list of names. Thorne, Lang, Croft, and intriguingly, the Belgian. Could that be him? Poirot pockets the notebook, his mind racing. What did Vance know of him back then? They moved to the asylum's archives, a dusty basement vault where old records mold in boxes. Poirot sifts through Vance's treatment logs, discovering entries about secret sessions. Thorne documented planting suggestions via the resonator false memories to ease guilt, but Vance resisted, his mind twisting them into nightmares. 1. Log chills, Poirot. Patient reports shared dreams with therapist, echoes bridging minds. Could the device link subconsciouses, explaining Poirot's visions? Lang's notes contradict, warning of psychic contamination. Poirot questions Hawthorne about visitors during Vance's stay. Few, he says. Lady Croft came occasionally guilt-ridden. Miss Hawthorne's secretary delivered messages. Poirot's eyes narrow. Art again, the thread connecting all. As evening falls, Poirot interviews a retired nurse, Mrs. Lydia Brooks, who cared for Vance. She's elderly now, living in a cottage on the grounds, her hands gnarled from years of service. Over tea in her cozy parlor, she recalls Vance with pity. Poor lad, she says, voice quavering. He'd wake screaming about a red gown, saying she made him do things. After Thorne's visits, he'd mutter about revenge making them, hear the echoes. 2. She mentions odd packages arriving for Vance near his release, small boxes, like those at the boarding house. I saw one open once, a phonograph disc labeled resonance test. Poirot shows her the spiral needle. She nods. He carved that symbol into everything, said it was the key to control.
Back in Hawthorne's office, Poirot confronts him about the resonator in the corner. Hawthorne admits it's the original, kept for historical value. Poirot asks too.
Tested. Reluctantly, Hawthorne activates it, the machine humming to life with a low vibration that sets Poirot's teeth on edge. He feels a pull like fingers in his mind, but shuts it off quickly. This could drive a man mad, Poirot mutters. Hawthorne reveals Vance stole parts before leaving enough to rebuild one. He was clever, learned electronics from books we gave him. Night descends as Poirot prepares to leave, but a storm brews, thunder rumbling like distant echoes. Hawthorne offers a guest room, and Poirot accepts, uneasy but intrigued. In the dim chamber, he pores over Vance's notebook by lamplight. Entries grow frantic. The Crimson One is real, she guides me. Thorne and Lang will pay for locking her away. A poem scribbled. Echoes in the deep, where secrets sleep. The spiral turns, the guilty burn. Poirot dozes fitfully, the storm lashing windows. In his dream, the asylum morphs into the ballroom. Crimson figure approaching, scar visible. You're close, Belgian, she hisses, but the echoes own you now. He wakes to a crash's door ajar. Wind howling in. On his pillow, a fresh note, welcome to my world, with a spiral drawn in red ink. Alert, Poirot searches the halls. Finding Hawthorne's office ransacked, the resonator smashed. A shadow flees into the rain-scar face, crimson coat flapping. Poirot pursues, mud splashing his polished shoes, but loses the figure in the woods. Returning soaked, he rouses Hawthorne, who denies knowledge. But Poirot spots ink on his hands, red ink. "You helped Vance?" Poirot accuses. Hawthorne crumbles. "He threatened me, said the echoes would take my mind. I gave him files, parts. Why, guilt. I approved the experiments that broke him." Dawn breaks as Poirot telegraphs Jap for backup. Vance's web extends here, the asylum. A cradle for his madness. The notebook's clues, Poirot deciphers a code. Frequencies for the resonator tuned to specific minds. His own name listed with a frequency. Has he been targeted all along? The puzzle deepens. Vance a puppet master pulling subconscious strings as the train chugs back to London. Poirot vows to end this. But the whispers linger, hinting at a final confrontation where minds collide. Up next, the chase leads to a forgotten estate where family secrets and sonic terrors await. Chapter 6. The Theater of Shadows. The streets of Covent Garden buzz with evening life flower sellers calling out. Theatergoers in their finery and the faint glow of gaslights cutting through the twilight mist. Hercule Poirot weaves through. The crowd, his polished shoes clicking on the cobblestones, his mind sharp as a blade. The derelict Lyceum Theater, once a stage for hypnotic spectacles, is his destination. He's convinced it's the lair of Edward Vance and Evelyn Hart, where the resonator hums its deadly tune, weaving echoes that twist minds into murder. The painting from Julian Harrow, showing Poirot strangled by spiral vines, sits heavy in his thoughts, as does the asylum's warning. The detective will hear the echoes soon. Tonight, Poirot means to end this dance of shadows, but he knows one misstep could trap him in the killer's hypnotic game. The Lyceum looms ahead, its faded marquee sagging, windows boarded, and ivy clawing up its brick facade like the vines. In Harrow's art, Poirot circles to a side alley, finding a rusted stage door ajar. He slips inside, the air thick with dust and the faint hum of machinery. The auditorium is a cavern of shadows, its velvet seats torn, the stage draped in tattered curtains. A single spotlight flickers, casting eerie patterned spirals, of course across the floor. Poirot's hand rests on the phonograph needle in his pocket, a talisman against the dread creeping up his spine. He moves silently, eyes scanning for the resonator or its masters. A faint lavender scent lingers, tying this place to the crime scenes backstage. Finds a hidden staircase descending to a basement. The hum grows louder, a low thrum that vibrates in his chest. At the bottom, a makeshift workshop sprawls. Wires snake across tables, phonograph records are stacked high. And the resonator sits center stage, a gleaming box of copper and glass, its tubes pulsing with faint light. Nearby, a gramophone spins, whispering phrases Poirot strains to ignore. Follow. The spiral obeyed the echo. He stops it, his head clearing, and examines papers scattered around blueprints of the resonator, lists of frequencies, and names of targets crossed out. Thorne, Lang, others. His own name is circled, with a note. Test subject for final. Echo Poirot's blood runs cold. They've been luring him here, weaving him into their scheme. A creak behind him makes him spin. Evelyn Hart stands in the doorway, her bobbed hair framing a face both calm and menacing. She's in a crimson coat, scar visible on her cheek, not Vance, but her. "You're persistent, Monsieur Poirot," she says, her voice smooth as silk. "Edward said you'd come." Poirot keeps his composure, mustache twitching. Is Monsieur Vance? And why this charade? Hart smiles, stepping closer. A small device in her hand, a remote switch, perhaps for the resonator. Edward's close, she says. He sees the world's hypocrisy minds, locked by guilt, like mine was. Thorne and Lang broke us, so we're breaking them back. You're just ... collateral. Poirot probes, buying time. Your scar, mademoiselle, matches the figure in my dreams. You've been planting suggestions, we? Hart's eyes narrow, but she nods. The resonator's power is exquisite. Slips into minds, makes them dance. Your dreams? A test. We needed to know if the great Poirot's mind could be touched. She flips the switch, and the resonator hums louder, the air shimmering. Poirot feels a tug at his thoughts, visions of the ballroom flickering. But he focuses on his breathing, a trick to resist hypnosis. And the murders? He asks. Hart laughs softly. Not murders, liberations. Thorne and Lang drove themselves. To death, their guilt amplified. Others will follow. Before Poirot can respond, a shadow moves behind her Vance, scar-faced and gaunt, steps from the darkness. Holding another record? Detective, he says, voice low and hypnotic. But you'll join the dance. He starts the gramophone, and the whispers intensify, urging Poirot to surrender. His vision blurs, the room tilting into the ballroom of his dreams, but he clenches the needle in his pocket, the sharp pain anchoring him. You overestimate your toy, Monsieur Vance, Poirot says, stepping toward the resonator. Of Poirot is not so easily swayed. Vance lunges, but Poirot sidesteps, toppling a table of records to slow him. Hart activates the resonator fully, its hum now deafening. And Poirot's knees buckle as visions flood in, the crimson figure Hart strangling him with spiral vines. He crawls to the machine, yanking wires loose, and the hum falters. Art screams, rushing him, but Poirot trips her with his cane, sending her sprawling. Vance grabs a wrench, advancing, but footsteps thunder above Jap and his men, alerted by Poirot's earlier call, burst in. Hands up, Vance, Jap shouts, revolver drawn. Vance freezes, Hart scrambles to her feet, but the police swarm, cuffing them both. As the resonator is silenced, Poirot steadies himself, explaining to Jap, Vance and Hart, scarred by past traumas and Thorne's experiments, turn the resonator into a weapon, planting suggestions to drive their enemies to suicide while framing it as their own doing. Poirot was targeted to test its limits, his dreams seeded with clues to draw him in. Jap finds a ledger listing more targets: politicians, doctors, even Harrowall, linked to Thorne's circle. You've cracked it, Poirot, Jap says, clapping his shoulder. But as they leave the theater, Poirot notices a final record, labeled Echo Finale, hidden under debris. He pockets it, uneasy. Vance's last words echo, "The dance never ends, detective." At his flat, Poirot hesitates, then locks the record away, fearing its power. The case feels solved, but a shadow lingers of all the echoes been silenced, or is another player still out there? The theater's curtain has fallen, but the echoes linger in Poirot's mind. Next, we'll uncover the final threads of this conspiracy, as a new clue threatens to unravel everything he thought he'd solved. Chapter 7. The unseen player. The morning sun filters through the lace curtains of Hercule Poirot's London flat, casting delicate patterns across his desk, but the warmth does little to ease the chill in his mind. Edward Vance and Evelyn Hart are behind bars, the resonator confiscated, and the Lyceum Theatre's basement sealed off by Scotland Yard. Yet Poirot's little gray cells remain restless, stirred by Vance's parting words. The dance never ends, detective. The record labeled Echo Finale, now locked in his safe, feels like a ticking bomb. Poirot senses an unseen hand, in this case, someone orchestrating beyond Vance and Hart, a mastermind who used them as pawns. He sips his tea, staring. at the safe and resolves to uncover this hidden player before the echoes claim another victim. Poirot begins by revisiting the ledger found in the theater, which Japp had photographed before it was logged as evidence. The list of names Thorne, Lang, Lady Croft, Harrow, and others includes a curious entry. The benefactor. No initials, no address, just a cryptic note. Funds and frequencies provided. Poirot's mustache twitches. Someone financed. Vance's revenge, supplying the resources to rebuild the resonator and craft those hypnotic records.
Ow.
He cross-references the ledger with Thorne's patient files, searching for a wealthy figure with a stake in subconscious manipulation. One name emerges. Sir Reginald Blake, a reclusive industrialist who attended Thorne's sessions years ago, seeking relief from insomnia. His file notes resistance to therapy and interest in experimental devices. Could Blake be the benefactor? Poirot hails a cab to Blake's mansion in Kensington, a sprawling estate guarded by iron gates and silent staff. A butler ushers him into a grand study lined with mahogany shelves and a portrait of a stern man Blake, with piercing eyes that seem to follow Poirot. Sir Reginald, silver-haired and impeccably dressed, greets him with a cool smile. Poirot, your reputation precedes you. To what do I owe this visit? Poirot, ever polite, mentions Thorne's death and the resonator, watching Blake's reaction. The man's face remains impassive, but his fingers tighten on a gold pocket watch. Tragic business, Blake says. I knew Thorne briefly his. Theories were intriguing but impractical. Poirot probes about funding experimental therapies. Blake laughs, dismissing it. I invest in steel, not dreams. Unconvinced, Poirot leaves but lingers outside, noticing a delivery van marked Acoustic Innovations. He follows it to a warehouse in Shoreditch, where crates labeled resonator parts are unloaded. Slipping inside, he finds schematics. For an advanced version of the device, smaller, portable, with notes on mass suggestion, a worker mentions shipments to Sir R's estate. Poirot's suspicions deepen. Blake isn't just a patient. He's funding a new wave of echo technology. But why? Revenge? Power? Or something grander? Back at his flat, Poirot examines the Echo finale record, resisting the urge to play it. Instead, he consults Dr. Margaret Wells again, showing her the Shoreditch schematics. She pales. This could influence crowds, not just individuals think. Rallies, theaters. Poirot recalls Blake's public persona. A philanthropist hosting charity galas, always at packed venues. Could he be planning to use the device on a larger scale? Poirot checks Blake's schedule. A gala tonight at the Savoy Hotel, attended by London's elite. A perfect stage for mass manipulation. Poirot attends the gala, blending into the crowd. Of tuxedos and gowns, the ballroom, with its chandeliers and mirrored walls, eerily mirrors his dreams. Blake takes the stage, announcing a special performance to honor mental health research. A phonograph begins to play, its hum subtle, but familiar. Poirot's head swims as guests sway, eyes glazing over. He spots a small device hidden behind a curtain, a compact resonator, active. Fighting the hum's pull, Poirot sabotages it, snapping wires. The music stops, guests blink, confused. Blake's smile falters, and he slips out a side door. Poirot pursues, cornering Blake in a quiet hallway. Your game is over, Sir Reginald, Poirot says, holding up the Shoreditch schematic. Blake's facade cracks. You don't understand, he hisses. The mind is chaos, my device brings order, obedience. Thorne and Lang were stepping stones. Vance was a tool. He admits funding Vance to test the resonator, planning to use it to sway influential minds, politicians, bankers for his own empire. Poirot, horrified, signals Japp, waiting outside with officers. Blake tries to flee but is caught, ranting about echoes shaping the future. As Blake is arrested, Poirot returns to the ballroom, where guests are recovering, unaware of the danger. He retrieves the Echo finale record from his safe later, destroying it without listening, fearing its power. The case seems closed, but one detail nags. Blake mentioned a partner who supplied the frequencies. Someone else knows the resonator's secrets. The echoes are quieter now, but Poirot knows the dance isn't over. Soon he'll chase the final shadow a partner, whose influence may stretch beyond London's fog. Chapter 8. The partner in the fog, the London fog rolls back in. Thicker than ever, cloaking the city in a ghostly veil as Hercule Poirot sits in his flat, the weight of Sir Reginald Blake's confession pressing on his mind. The industrialists. Arrest at the Savoy Gala stopped a dangerous scheme. But Blake's mention of a partner who crafted the hypnotic frequencies for the resonator keeps Poirot awake. His little gray cells churn, sifting through clues, the advanced schematics from Shoreditch, precision of the echo records, and the lingering sense that someone orchestrated this plot with a finesse even Blake lacked. The echo finale. Record, now destroyed, was a warning someone else is out there, pulling strings from the shadows. Poirot adjusts his mustache, lights a lamp, and dives back into the evidence. Determined to unmask this unseen partner before their next move, Poirot starts with the Shoreditch warehouse papers she'd photographed before handing them to Jap. Among the schematics, he finds a handwritten note. Frequencies optimized per CL's specifications, initials his first solid lead. He cross-references them with Thorne's patient files and Blake's contacts, landing on Dr. Cecilia Langley, a reclusive acoustics expert who collaborated with Thorne years ago on sound therapy research. Her name appeared briefly in the asylum records. Noted as a consultant who left after a dispute with Lang, Poirot recalls a passing mention from Dr. Wells. Langley was brilliant, but eccentric. Obsessed with sound's power over the mind, could she be the partner perfecting the resonator's deadly hum? Poirot tracks Langley's last known address to a quiet cottage in Hampstead, far from London's bustle. The house is small, but meticulously kept, its garden overrun with lavender theirs. That scent again, tying her to the crime scenes. He knocks, and a woman answers, mid-40s, sharp-featured, with graying hair pulled into a tight bun. Her eyes narrow at his introduction. "Monsieur Poirot, I have no time for detectives," she says, but he charms his way inside, citing a scholarly interest in her work. The living room is a shrine to acoustics, shelves of books on sound waves, a phonograph with custom modifications, and a small prototype resonator, its glass tubes glinting. Langley's guarded, but Poirot notices her fingers tap nervously when he mentions the gala. He tests her, casually referencing the CL. Note, her face betrays a flicker of panic before she recovers. "I consult for many projects," she says. "Sound is my domain, not crime." Poirot presses, and frequencies that control minds. Langley laughs, but it's forced. Science. Fiction, nothing more. Yet as she pours tea, Poirot spots a notebook on her desk, its pages filled with spiral diagrams and frequency charts matching the warehouse schematics. He distracts her with questions about Thorne, slipping the notebook into his coat. She doesn't notice, but her eyes follow him as he leaves, promising to return. At his flat, Poirot studies the notebook. It's a goldmine. Detailed equations. For hypnotic frequencies, notes on mass influence, and a cryptic reference to the Paris trial. Poirot recalls a 1920s case in Paris, where a hypnotist manipulated a crowd into a frenzy. Langley was briefly mentioned as an expert witness. He contacts a French colleague, Inspector Dubois, who confirms Langley was disgraced after the trial, accused of unethical experiments. She vanished to London soon after. Poirot's theory solidifies. Langley, bitter from her fall, partnered with Blake to refine Vance's resonator, seeking to prove her theories on a grand scale. To confirm, Poirot visits Jap, who's interrogating Blake. Under pressure, Blake admits Langley supplied the frequencies, claiming she approached him years ago with a vision of reshaping society through sound. He funded her, believing he'd control the outcome, but she used Vance and Hart as proxies, keeping her hands clean. "She's untouchable," Blake sneers. "You'll never pin her." Poirot disagrees. He sets a trap, inviting Langley to a private consultation at his flat, claiming he's found a new resonator prototype. Jap hides nearby with officers. Langley arrives, carrying a small case, another device, perhaps. Poirot plays the gracious host, showing her a fake schematic he drew. "Magnificent work, mademoiselle," he says, watching her ego flare. She boasts about her frequencies, admitting they could bend any mind with the right setup. Poirot reveals the stolen notebook, and her composure cracks. "You're meddling in forces beyond you," she snaps, pulling a compact resonator from her case. It hums, and Poirot feels the familiar tug visions of spirals, a voice urging him to confess secrets. He resists, having practiced countering hypnosis, and signals Jap. Officers burst in, disarming Langley as she tries to flee. In custody, Langley remains defiant, claiming her work was for science, not murder. Vance was a pawn, Blake a fool. She says, "The echoes were my art." Poirot, unshaken, points out her frequencies killed innocents. She shrugs, chillingly detached. Jap finds more devices in her cottage, enough to hypnotize a small army. The case seems closed, but Poirot wonders, did Langley act alone, or was she too a pawn? As he leaves Scotland Yard, a street vendor slips him a note, a spiral with Paris. "Await" scrawled. Echoes linger, pointing to a new stage across the channel. Chapter 9. The Paris Connection. The channel crossing is rough. Waves battering the ferry as Hercule Poirot stands at the rail, his overcoat flapping in the salty wind. The cryptic note, "Paris awaits," adorned with a spiral burns in his pocket like a live coal. London's fog may have lifted, but the echoes of the subconscious still haunt him. Dr. Cecilia Langley's arrest seemed to close the case. With her hypnotic frequencies exposed as the tool behind Vance and Hart's deadly scheme. Yet Poirot's little gray cells hum with unease. Langley's chilling detachment, her claim of crafting art through mind control. Now this note suggests a deeper conspiracy, one that stretches beyond England's shores to the glittering streets of Paris. Someone, perhaps the true mastermind, is waiting. And Poirot is determined to unmask them before the resonator's hum claims more lives. Paris greets him with a burst of autumn color, the Seine sparkling under a crisp blue sky. Poirot checks into a modest hotel near the Latin Quarter, its narrow windows overlooking bustling cafes and artists' stalls. He begins with the 1920s hypnotism trial Langley was linked to, hoping it holds clues to her Paris connection. At the Bibliothèque Nationale, he pores over dusty newspaper archives, his gloved fingers tracing headlines from 1927. Hypnotist's crowd frenzy shocks Paris. The case involved a performer, Madame Celeste Dubois, who used sound and suggestion. To incite a theater audience into chaos, some danced uncontrollably, others confessed private sins aloud. Langley, then a young acoustics scholar, testified that such manipulation was possible with precise frequencies. The trial ruined her reputation when her own experiments were deemed unethical, forcing her to flee to London. But the archives mention a shadowy figure, wealthy patron who funded Dubois's act. No name, only a description. A gentleman of refined taste, always with a silver cane. Poirot's next stop is the Paris police prefecture, where his old friend Inspector Dubois welcomes him with a hearty handshake and a glass of cognac. Dubois, a burly man with a walrus mustache, digs up old case files on Dubois's trial. Celeste was a charmer, he says, but dangerous. She vanished after the trial, some say to America, others to a convent. Poirot shows him the spiral. Note, Dubois frowns. That symbol was on her posters, part of her act. He adds a lead. Celeste's former stage manager, Pierre Moreau, runs a small music shop in Montmartre, rumored to deal in rare phonographs. Poirot thanks him and heads to Montmartre, the air alive with accordion music and the scent of fresh baguettes. Moreau's shop is a cluttered den of gramophones and vinyl records, its walls plastered with faded theater bills. Moreau, a wiry man, with nervous eyes, recognizes Poirot's name and tenses. "I'm retired from that life," he insists, polishing a brass phonograph. Poirot mentions Celeste, and Moreau's hands shake. She was a genius, he admits, but her patron ran the show, a man called Monsieur Laurent. Always in the shadows, silver cane in hand. Laurent, he says, funded Celeste's experiments with sound devices eerily similar to the resonator. Poirot shows the spiral note and Moreau pales. That's Laurent's mark. He sent me one last week asking about old records. Poirot presses for Laurent's whereabouts. Moreau hesitates, then whispers. He's at the Theatre des Ombres. Tonight, a private show. The Theatre des Ombres, a crumbling venue in Pigalle, is known for avant-garde performances. Poirot arrives as dusk falls, slipping into the dimly lit auditorium. The stage is set with a single phonograph and a screen projecting swirling spirals. The audience, a mix of bohemians and aristocrats, murmurs excitedly. Poirot spots a man. In a box seat, silver cane, tailored suit, face half hidden by a scarf. Laurent, he's certain. The show begins, and a low hum fills the air. The screen spirals, pulsing. Poirot feels the familiar tug at his mind, whispers urging calm submission. He grips his cane, focusing on its solid weight to resist. Audience sways, entranced, as a woman's voice, Celeste's, narrates a journey into the subconscious. Poirot slips backstage, finding a compact resonator hidden in the wings, its tubes glowing. He sabotages it, snapping a wire, and the hum stops. The audience blinks, confused. As Laurent bolts from his box, Poirot pursues through Pigalle's crowded streets, dodging revelers and street performers. Laurent ducks into an alley, but Poirot corners him at a dead end. Monsieur Laurent. Gay men's here, Poirot declares, breathless but firm. Laurent, a lean man with cold gray eyes, smirks. You're tenacious, Poirot. Got the echoes are eternal. He admits being Langley's mentor, funding her and Celeste to perfect mind control through sound. Blake was a pawn, Vaughn's a tool, he says. The resonator will reshape Mind's government's armies. Poirot, horrified, signals Dubois. Who'd followed with officers? Laurent tries to draw a concealed pistol, but Poirot disarms him with a swift cane strike. The police pounce. At the prefecture, Laurent remains defiant, claiming a network of echo artists across Europe. Celeste, he reveals, is alive, hiding in Paris, preparing a new device. Dubois raids her last known address, finding only a burned notebook with spiral sketches and a single record labeled All-Time Echo. Poirot, wary of its power, locks it away. Laurent's arrest feels like a victory, but Celeste's absence gnaws at him. Was she the crimson figure all along, manipulating even Langley? As Poirot boards a train back to London, a street musician hands him a rose with a spiral-etched ribbon. No note, just a whisper in his mind. The dance continues. The final act awaits, and Poirot knows he must find Celeste before her echoes engulf the world. Chapter 10. The final echo, the train back to London, rattles through the night. Its steady rhythm a counterpoint to the storm in Hercule Poirot's mind. The rose, with its spiral-etched ribbon, handed to him by a Paris street musician, rests on the seat beside him, its delicate petals hiding a sinister promise. The dance continues. Monsieur Laurent's arrest in Paris unmasked a key player in the deadly echo conspiracy. But the revelation of Madame Celeste Dubois live and orchestrating from the shadows has left Poirot restless. The all-time echo record, locked. In his suitcase hums with latent danger, and he knows Celeste is the final piece of this puzzle. Her hypnotic performances in the 1920s, her connection to Langley, Vance, and Blake, and her mastery of the resonator's frequencies make her the true architect of the murders. Poirot's little gray cells burn with purpose. He must find her, destroy her final device, and silence the echoes once and for all. Back in London, the city's fog feels like a shroud, but Poirot is ready to lift it. At his flat, Poirot spreads out every clue. The asylum diagram, Langley's notebook, the shortage schematics, and Laurent's cryptic warnings about a network of echo artists. He cross-references them with Celeste's Paris trial records sent by Inspector Dubois. A pattern emerges: Celeste's performances. Always targeted influential figures, diplomats, artists, industrialists, planting subtle suggestions that lingered for years. Poirot recalls Lady Croft's confession of a planted memory and Harrow's hypnotic paintings. Celeste didn't just manipulate individuals. She wove a web across society, using sound to bend minds long after her shows ended. The old time echo record, he suspects, is her masterpiece of frequency to control masses. Perhaps at an upcoming event, Poirot visits Scotland Yard, where Japp is sifting through Blake's financial records. A lead surfaces payments to a London theatre company, Les Ombres Eternelles, linked to Celeste's alias. The company is staging a charity performance tomorrow at the Palladium, a grand venue packed with London's elite, perfect for Celeste's ambitions. Japp confirms the theatre rented sound equipment from a firm tied to Langley's acoustic designs. Poirot's pulse quickens. This is no coincidence. He convinces Japp to secure the venue, but discreetly. Celeste is cunning, and any hint of a trap could send her deeper into hiding. That evening, Poirot meets Dr. Margaret Wells at her clinic, showing her the all-time echo record. She analyzes its grooves under a microscope, confirming unique etchings designed for mass hypnosis. This could affect thousands, she warns, inducing compliance or even violence. Poirot asks her to craft a counter-frequency to disrupt it, which she promises to deliver by morning. Alone, Poirot risks a brief listen to the record, using earplugs to dull its effect. Even so, whispers invade his mind. Join the spiral, lead the dance. He sees Celeste crimson gown, scar on her cheek, smiling in a vast ballroom. He stops the record, shaken but resolute. She's taunting him, knowing his mind resists, but daring him to confront her. The next day, Poirot arrives at the Palladium, its marquee advertising a night of harmony. The irony isn't lost on him. Japp's men are posted at exits, and Wells slips him a small device, a portable speaker with her counter-frequency. Inside, the auditorium glows with chandeliers, the crowd buzzing with anticipation. Poirot scans. For Celeste, spotting a woman in a crimson cloak near the stage, her face veiled. The show begins with a haunting melody from a modified phonograph, its hum eerily familiar. The audience sways, eyes glazing as spirals project onto a screen. Poirot feels the pull, but activates Wells's device, emitting a sharp, discordant tone. The hum falters, the crowd blinks, and the woman in crimson bolts backstage. Poirot pursues, navigating a maze of props and curtains. He finds her in a sound booth, adjusting a sleek resonator smaller, deadlier than the others. Madame Celeste, he calls, stepping forward. She turns, unmasking to reveal a scarred face, her eyes blazing with defiance. "You're too late." "Poirot," she says, her voice smooth as velvet. The echoes are in their minds now. She admits everything. She trained Langley, manipulated Vance and Hart, and used Blake's wealth to fund her Vishuna world reshaped by her frequencies. With her as its unseen queen, Thorne and Lang were collateral, she says. They dared to limit my art. Poirot, unfazed, reveals her plan. The Palladium performance was to hypnotize London's leaders, planting suggestions for chaos. "And me?" he asks. She smiles. "A challenge. Your mind resisted almost." Celeste activates the resonator, its hum deafening. Poirot's vision blurs, spirals swirling, but he triggers Wells's device again, its counter-frequency shattering the booth's glass. Celeste lunges, wielding a silver dagger, but Poirot sidesteps, using his cane to disarm her. Japp's men swarm, cuffing her as she laughs maniacally. "The network lives, Poirot. You'll never silence us all." The resonator is dismantled, the record destroyed, and the audience, shaken but unharmed, is ushered out. Back at his flat, Poirot debriefs with Japp and Dubois, who've traced Celeste's network to small cells in Berlin and Vienna now, under investigation. The resonator's components are locked away, and Wells burns her counter-frequency notes to prevent misuse. Poirot reflects on the case. Celeste exploited the subconscious, turning guilt, fear, and ambition into weapons, his own dreams seeded. By her records were a test of his will. He checks his safe, ensuring no records remain, and burns the spiral-etched ribbon for good measure. As he sips his tisane, the fog outside lifts, revealing a clear London sky. The echoes are silent for now, but Poirot knows the mind is a fragile thing, and somewhere another whisper might stir. Smiles, ready for the next mystery. Thanks for joining this wild ride, folks. If you loved unraveling this with Poirot, hit that like button, subscribe, and comment below. What's the creepiest mystery you'd want him to tackle next?